The clock on the wall read 3:17 a.m. when Janae Williams finally let herself break. She'd held it together through her entire shift, scrubbing floors in the executive offices of Min Tower, emptying trash bins, polishing glass until it gleamed. She'd smiled at the night security guard, made small talk with the other cleaning crew, pretended everything was fine, normal, manageable. But now, alone in the corner office on the 47th floor, the one that belonged to Kang Minho, the building's notoriously private owner, she finally let the tears fall. Her hands shook as she sank into the leather chair behind his massive desk, burying her face in her palms. The eviction notice crinkled in her uniform pocket, a paper knife twisting deeper with each breath. 72 hours. That's all she had. 72 hours to come up with 3 months back rent, or she and her daughter would be on the street. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered to the empty room, her voice breaking. "God, I just can't." The office door opened. Janae's head snapped up, her heart stopping as she locked eyes with the one man who was never supposed to be here at 3 a.m. The one man whose office she was currently crying in, whose personal space she'd violated in her moment of weakness. Kang Minho stood in the doorway, perfectly still, his dark eyes taking in every detail: her tear-stained face, her trembling hands, the way she'd curled into herself like she was trying to disappear. He was dressed in all black despite the late hour. Black suit, black shirt, no tie. His sharp features were cast in shadows from the city lights streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Power radiated from him like heat from asphalt in summer. I'm so sorry, Mr. Kang." Janae scrambled to her feet, swiping frantically at her tears. I shouldn't be." "Sit down." 2 words, quiet, absolute. Janae froze, her body responding to the command before her brain could process it. She sank back into the chair, her heart hammering so hard she felt dizzy. Kang Minho closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded deafening in the silence. He moved toward her with deliberate steps, each one measured and controlled, until he stood directly in front of the desk. This close, she could see the details. The overhead lights revealed the faint scar along his left eyebrow, the delicate Korean script tattooed on the side of his neck that disappeared beneath his collar, the way his dark eyes tracked every micro-expression on her face. "You're the new night janitor," he said. Not a question, a statement of fact delivered in that deep, accented voice that sent involuntary shivers down her spine. "Yes, sir. Janae Williams. I started 3 weeks ago." She forced the words out, trying to sound professional despite the mess she knew she looked like. "I apologize for being in your office. I was just finishing the cleaning rotation and You were crying." The simple observation made fresh tears burn behind her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. "Personal matter, sir. It won't happen again. I'll just finish up and..." "Why were you crying in my office at 3 a.m., Janae Williams?" The use of her full name, the genuine question in his tone, the way he was looking at her like he actually cared about the answer, it all combined to crack something open inside her chest. "Because I'm about to lose everything," she heard herself say. "Because I'm working 3 jobs, and it's still not enough. Because my daughter deserves better than a mother who can't even keep a roof over her head. Because I'm so tired of being strong when I feel like I'm drowning." The words poured out of her, unstoppable now that the dam had broken. Kang Minho listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable but his attention absolute. When she finally fell silent, ashamed of her outburst, he did something she never expected. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, actual cloth, expensive and monogrammed, and held it out to her. "Wipe your tears," he said quietly. "Then tell me everything. From the beginning." Something in his voice made it impossible to refuse. And Janae, exhausted and desperate and somehow feeling safer in this moment than she had in months, began to talk. She had no idea that this 3 a.m. encounter would change everything. She had no idea that the most dangerous man in the building was about to become her most devoted protector. She had no idea that Kang Minho didn't just notice her tears, he'd been noticing her since the day she started working in his building. And now that he'd found her broken and vulnerable in his private space, there was no force on. 3 weeks earlier, Kang Minho didn't believe in coincidence. In his world, a world of calculated moves, strategic alliances, and carefully maintained power, everything happened for a reason. Every person who entered his orbit did so either by design or by exploiting a weakness in his defenses. So when he first noticed the new night janitor, he paid attention. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. He'd been working late in his penthouse office, reviewing contracts for a shipment coming in from Busan, when movement on the security monitors caught his eye. A woman pushing a cleaning cart down the corridor of the 45th floor, moving with quiet efficiency. Most of the cleaning crew were older Korean or Hispanic women who'd worked in his building for years, women who knew better than to ask questions, who understood the unspoken rules of working in a building owned by the Kang family. This woman was different. She was young, late 20s, he estimated, with rich mahogany skin and natural hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her uniform hung slightly loose on her slender frame, suggesting recent weight loss. But what caught his attention was the way she moved, carefully, almost cautiously, like someone who'd learned to take up as little space as possible, like someone hiding. Minho leaned forward, studying the monitor more closely. She was cleaning the windows with meticulous attention, her movements practiced and efficient, professional. But there was something in her posture, a tension in her shoulders, a tightness around her mouth that spoke of strain. He pulled up her employment file on his computer. Janae Williams, age 28, single mother. 3 employment references, all solid, background check clean. But it was the notes section that made him pause. Hired through emergency placement program. Requested night shift specifically. Needs health insurance immediately. Emergency placement, night shift, immediate insurance needs. Minho's instincts, honed by years of reading people and situations, told him there was a story here, one that probably involved desperation and fear and the kind of circumstances that drove good people to take jobs they were overqualified for. He should have dismissed it. Should have closed the file and gone back to his contracts. Instead, he found himself watching her on the monitors for the next hour. She moved through the floors with systematic precision, never cutting corners, never rushing despite the late hour. When she passed the night security guard, she smiled a genuine smile that lit up her entire face and exchanged a few words before moving on. Something about that smile lodged itself in Minho's chest. It was the smile of someone who was trying, who refused to let circumstances break them, who found small moments of connection, even in the loneliest hours of the night. He knew that kind of strength, had built his entire empire on it. Over the next 3 weeks, Minho found himself adjusting his schedule, working later, finding reasons to be in the building during her shift. He told himself it was random, coincidental. He knew better. He learned her patterns. She started on the lower floors at midnight, working her way up. She took her break at 2:15 a.m. in the employee lounge, always with a thermos of tea and a worn paperback. She finished on the executive floors around 3:30 a.m., then caught the subway home. He never approached her, never let her see him watching, but he noticed everything. The way she winced sometimes when lifting heavy equipment, suggesting an old injury, the increasing hollowness in her cheeks as the weeks progressed, the dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, the way she sometimes stood at the windows, looking out at the city with an expression that broke something inside him. She was drowning, and no one else seemed to see it. Minho had built his reputation on being cold, calculating, untouchable. In the criminal underworld he commanded, showing weakness meant death. Caring about anyone made them a target. So he told himself he was simply being observant, vigilant about who worked in his building. He told himself his interest was purely professional. He told himself a lot of lies during those 3 weeks. Then came the night he found her crying in his office, and all his carefully constructed distance shattered like glass. Janae's world. Janae Williams had learned early that survival required sacrifice. First, it was her college education abandoned in her sophomore year when she got pregnant with Amara. Her boyfriend had disappeared the moment she told him, and her family had made it clear she was on her own. Then it was her dreams of becoming a teacher. Hard to pursue a degree when you were working 2 jobs to keep the lights on. Then it was her health, pushed aside because doctor's visits cost money she didn't have. Then it was sleep, because 3 jobs meant someone else's schedule always demanded her time. And now, apparently, it was her dignity crying in a stranger's office at 3 a.m. because she'd finally hit the wall she'd been running toward for years. But even as tears streamed down her face, even as this terrifyingly powerful man stood before her demanding answers, Janae felt something shift. For the first time and longer than she could remember, someone was actually paying attention. Not just seeing her, anyone with eyes could do that. Seeing her, the exhaustion, the fear, the barely contained desperation she worked so hard to hide. And instead of looking away, instead of dismissing her as just another struggling single mother in a city full of them, Kang Minho was looking at her like she mattered, like her pain was important, like he gave a damn. It was dangerous, that look. More dangerous than anything she'd faced before, because Janae had survived this long by not needing anyone, by handling everything herself, by being strong enough to carry her world on her shoulders alone. But the way Kang Minho was looking at her now made her want to stop being strong. Made her want to lean on someone else for once. Made her want things she had absolutely no business wanting from a man like him. "Start from the beginning," he said again, his voice gentler now. He moved to the chair across from the desk, deliberately putting the furniture between them, she realized, giving her space. Control. "Take your time. I'm listening." And God help her, Janae believed him. So she started talking. Janae's hands twisted the expensive handkerchief as she spoke, her voice raw but steady. "My daughter's name is Amara. She's 7. Smart as a whip. Loves to read. Wants to be an astronaut." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "She doesn't know we're about to be evicted. I haven't told her yet because what's the point of ruining her sleep too?" Kang Minho remained perfectly still, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "Her father?" he asked quietly. "Gone before she was born. My family disowned me when I got pregnant, said I was throwing my life away." Janae's laugh was bitter. "Turns out they were half right. I did throw away my full scholarship to Columbia. Dropped out sophomore year because I couldn't afford childcare and tuition." She saw something flicker in Minho's expression but couldn't identify it. "I've been working ever since. Started as a waitress, added retail on weekends, picked up this night cleaning job 3 weeks ago. 3 jobs, 18-hour days, and it's still not enough." Her voice cracked. "My landlord raised the rent 4 months ago. I've been falling behind ever since. Now I owe 3 months back rent $4,800 and I have 72 hours to pay, or we're out." "Where's your daughter now?" "With my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She watches Amara overnight when I'm working." Janae's eyes burned with fresh tears. "She's been so good to us, but if we get evicted, I lose her too. Mrs. Chen can't help us, she's on a fixed income, and I have nowhere else to go." Minho leaned forward slightly. "What about your other jobs? Can they advance your pay? The restaurant is barely keeping afloat, they already cut my hours. The retail store is seasonal contract work, pays every 2 weeks. I've already asked." The defeat in her voice was absolute. "I've exhausted every option, Mr. Kang. I've sold everything I can sell. Applied for every assistance program, borrowed from every friend who could spare it. There's nothing left." She looked down at her hands, shame flooding through her. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear all this. You asked a simple question, and I unloaded everything on you. That's not professional. I'll finish cleaning and—" "No." The single word stopped her mid-movement. "No?" she repeated. "You're not finishing your shift tonight. You're going home to your daughter." Minho stood, pulling his phone from his pocket. "And you're not going to be evicted." Janae's heart stuttered. "What, Mr. Kang? I can't. I'm not asking you for—" "I know you're not asking." He looked at her with those intense dark eyes. "That's why I'm offering $4,800 to clear your debt, paid directly to your landlord tomorrow morning." The world tilted. "I can't accept that." "Why not?" "Because I don't take charity. Because I don't know you. Because—" she swallowed hard. "Because nothing in this world is free, and I can't afford whatever strings would come attached to that kind of money." Something like respect flickered across Minho's face. "Smart," he said quietly. "You're right to be cautious. But this isn't charity, Janae. It's an investment." "In what?" "In you." He moved around the desk, stopping a careful distance away, close enough that she could see the golden flecks in his dark eyes, far enough that she didn't feel trapped. "You're working 3 jobs, raising a daughter alone, and still managing to be the most thorough cleaner my building has ever had. Your intelligent Columbia scholarship proves that. You're resourceful. You're strong." He paused, his voice dropping lower. "And you're drowning because the system is designed to keep people like you underwater. That's not charity to fix. That's justice." "Justice," she echoed, her mind spinning. "I'll pay your back rent. In exchange, you quit your other 2 jobs and work exclusively for me. Day shift, not nights. Better pay, full benefits, and your daughter gets enrolled in the private school 2 blocks from here, tuition covered." Janae's breath caught. "Why would you do that?" "Because I need someone I can trust in my organization. Someone who sees things, hears things, but knows when to stay silent." His gaze was steady, unflinching. "You've been working in this building for 3 weeks. You've never once gossiped with the other staff about what you've seen, never asked questions about why certain men visit at strange hours, or why some offices are off limits, or why security is so tight." He was right. She'd noticed all of it, the expensive cars that arrived at midnight, the men in suits who spoke in rapid Korean, the way the security guards carried themselves like soldiers rather than rent-a-cops. She'd noticed and deliberately ignored it all. You're observant, discreet, and you need stability for your daughter. I need someone in my inner circle who has no connections to my world, no agenda beyond providing for their family. Minho tilted his head slightly. It's a fair exchange. What exactly would I be doing for you? Initially, administrative work, managing schedules, organizing files, handling correspondence. Later, perhaps more, if you prove trustworthy. He pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the desk. Think about it. Call me tomorrow with your answer. Janae looked at the card. Simple, expensive cardstock with just a name and phone number in both English and Korean. Kang Minho. What if I say no? She asked quietly. Then you say no. I'll respect your decision. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. But your rent still gets paid. Consider it a bonus for enduring a late-night interrogation from your boss. That's still charity. No. It's me exercising my right to spend my money however I choose, and I choose to spend it making sure a brilliant woman and her daughter don't end up on the street. He moved toward the door, then paused. You have potential, Janae Williams. Don't let pride make you waste it. He left as quietly as he'd arrived, the door clicking shut behind him. Janae sat alone in the office, her mind reeling, the business card heavy as a promise in her trembling hand. The decision. Janae didn't sleep that day. She went home as Minho had instructed, arriving just as Mrs. Chen was making breakfast for Amara. Her daughter had launched herself into Janae's arms with such pure joy that it physically hurt. Mama, you're home early. Can we have pancakes? Of course, baby. Janae held her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her coconut hair cream, feeling the solid warmth of her small body. Anything you want. After Mrs. Chen left and Amara was happily demolishing chocolate chip pancakes, Janae allowed herself to think about Minho's offer. It was too good to be true. That was her first instinct. Men like Kang Minho, powerful, wealthy men who conducted business in the shadows, didn't help women like her out of the goodness of their hearts. There had to be a catch. Something he wasn't telling her. But as she watched Amara draw pictures of stars and rockets, chattering about her dreams of space, Janae forced herself to be honest. What were her alternatives? She could refuse his help, try to scrape together the rent money in 72 hours. It was impossible. But she could try. She'd probably fail. They'd be evicted. She'd lose her housing, possibly her jobs, definitely Mrs. Chen's childcare. Or she could accept, take the lifeline he was offering, give Amara stability, a good school, a future that didn't involve her mother working herself to death. The risk either way was enormous, but only one option gave her daughter a fighting chance. Mama? Amara's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Why do you look sad? Janae smiled, smoothing her daughter's curly hair. Not sad, baby. Just thinking. About what? About whether we might want to switch to a day school. One closer to Mama's work. Amara's eyes went wide. Really? With a science lab? Mrs. Chen said some schools have real science labs. Maybe. Would you like that? Yes. Amara bounced in her seat. Can I learn about stars? And planets? And black holes? Looking at her daughter's face, lit up with hope and excitement, Janae felt her decision crystallize. She picked up her phone and dialed the number on Minho's card. He answered on the first ring. Janae. The sound of her name and his deep voice sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. I'll take the job, she said. But I have conditions. I'm listening. First, everything goes through a formal contract. Employment terms, salary, benefits, all of it in writing. Legal and binding. Agreed. Second, my daughter comes first. Always. If there's ever a conflict between work and her needs, she wins. Understood. Third, I need to know what I'm getting into. Not everything. I'm not stupid enough to think you'll tell me all your secrets. But the basics. What kind of business you really run. What risks I'm taking by working for you. There was a pause. Then, come to my office tonight, 8 p.m. I'll explain everything, and you can decide if you still want to proceed. Tonight? The sooner we establish trust, the better, for both of us. Janae's heart hammered. Okay, 8 p.m. Janae? Yes? Thank you for calling. The line went dead. The truth. Min Tower looked different at 8 p.m. The lobby was quieter, with only a skeleton security crew. They waved Janae through when she gave her name, directing her to a private elevator that required a keycard. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse office that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan. The decor was a perfect blend of modern minimalism and traditional Korean aesthetics. Sleek furniture alongside antique pottery, abstract art next to delicate calligraphy scrolls. And there, standing by the windows with his hands clasped behind his back, was Kang Minho. He'd changed since she'd last seen him. Now he wore dark slacks and a black silk shirt, the top buttons undone to reveal the hollow of his throat and the upper edge of that intriguing tattoo. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. He looked powerful and dangerous and somehow more human than she'd ever seen him. "You came," he said, turning to face her. "I said I would. People often say things they don't mean." He gestured to the seating area, a low couch and chairs arranged around a glass coffee table. "Sit, I'll get us tea." "I can get it." "Sit," he repeated, gentler this time. "You're not working right now. You're a guest." Janae sat, watching as he moved to a sidebar and prepared tea with practiced efficiency. The familiar motions seemed to calm him, and when he returned with 2 cups of fragrant green tea, some of the tension had left his shoulders. "You want to know what you're getting into?" he said, settling into the chair across from her. "That's wise, so I'll tell you the truth, and you'll decide if you can live with it." He took a sip of tea, his dark eyes never leaving hers. "My family has controlled organized crime on the East Coast for 3 generations. Gambling, protection, import, export of goods that don't always pass through customs. We're not the Mafia, different structure, different culture, but we operate in similar spaces." Janae's hands tightened on her teacup, but she said nothing. "I took over the family business 5 years ago when my father died. Since then, I've been working to transition into legitimate enterprises. This building, the real estate portfolio, the tech investments, all legal. But the foundation was built on illegal money, and I still maintain connections to that world." "Why tell me this?" Janae asked quietly. "Why not just keep me in the dark? Because you're too smart not to figure it out eventually, and I'd rather you hear it from me." Minho set down his teacup. "If you work for me, you'll be exposed to that world. You'll overhear conversations, see people who are definitely not legitimate businessmen, witness things that might make you uncomfortable. And you want me to stay silent about it?" "Yes. But more than that, I want you to understand what staying silent means. It means accepting that I operate in moral gray areas, that I've done things, will continue to do things that good people would condemn." His voice dropped. "I need to know if you can live with that. If you can look at me knowing what I am and not see a monster." Janae studied his face, the sharp angles and hard edges that spoke of a life where weakness meant death, but also the careful way he'd made her tea, the genuine concern in his eyes when he'd found her crying, the way he'd offered to help her daughter without asking for anything in return. "My father used to say that good and evil aren't as simple as people think," she said slowly. "That sometimes good people do bad things for the right reasons, and bad people do good things for the wrong ones. He said the real measure of a person is what they do when no one's watching. And what do you think I am? I think you're complicated. I think you've built an empire in the shadows, and I think that probably required ruthlessness and violence." She met his gaze steadily. "But I also think you found a stranger crying in your office at 3 a.m., and your first instinct was to help her, not to exploit her desperation, not to use her vulnerability, but to genuinely help. That tells me something too." Something shifted in Minho's expression, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. "You're not afraid of me," he said. "Should I be? Most people are." "I'm not most people." Janae set down her teacup. "I'm a single mother who's been fighting the world alone since I was 20. I've dealt with landlords who tried to extort me, bosses who touched me inappropriately, welfare workers who treated me like garbage, men who thought I was easy prey because I was struggling. You know what all of them had in common?" "What?" "They all underestimated me. Assumed because I was young and black and broke that I was weak, that I wouldn't fight back." Her voice hardened. "You're the first powerful man who's looked at me and seen strength, who's offered help without demanding something degrading in return. So no, Mr. Kang, I'm not afraid of you. Should I be?" The silence stretched between them, electric and charged. Then Minho smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face from severe to devastating. "No," he said quietly. "You shouldn't be. Not of me." He stood, moving to his desk and returning with a folder. "The contract," he explained, handing it to her. "Everything we discussed, plus a few additional benefits I thought you might need. Take it home. Have a lawyer review it if you want, I'll pay for that. Read it carefully, and if you have questions, call me." Janae opened the folder, her eyes widening as she scanned the terms. Annual salary, $85,000. Signing bonus, $10,000. Health insurance, full coverage, including dental and vision. Amara's school tuition, covered in full. Housing allowance, $2,000. Month. It was more money than she'd ever dreamed of making. "This is too much," she whispered. "It's what you're worth, and what I need to pay to ensure you and Amara are comfortable enough that you'll never be vulnerable to my enemies." The words sent a chill through her. "Your enemies? People in my world look for weaknesses. If they know you work for me, if they figure out you matter to me." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm offering you this position because I genuinely believe you'll be an asset. But I'm also offering it because I want you protected, under my umbrella, where I can ensure no one uses you as leverage against me. Do I matter to you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Minho's dark eyes held hers. "You're starting to—" The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken implications. "I should go," Janae said, standing abruptly. "I need to review this, and Amara—" "Wait." He crossed to a cabinet and pulled out a phone, brand new, still in the box. "Take this. My number is already programmed in. If you ever need anything at all, day or night, you call me immediately. Don't hesitate. Don't second guess. Just call." Janae took the phone, their fingers brushing. The contact sent electricity shooting up her arm. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. "The real reason." Minho was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Because I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who want something from me. Power, money, protection, fear. And then I found you crying in my office, and all you wanted was to survive, to protect your daughter, to keep fighting even when everything was against you." His voice softened. "That kind of strength is rare, Janae. I want it in my organization, and I want to protect it, because the world breaks people like you, and that's a crime worse than anything I've ever committed." Janae's throat tightened with emotion. "I'll read the contract," she managed, "and I'll call you tomorrow. I'll be waiting." As the elevator doors closed on Minho's intense gaze, Janae realized with startling clarity that she was standing at a crossroads. One path led back to her old life struggle and exhaustion and constant fear. The other led into the unknown, guided by a dangerous man who somehow made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. The choice should have been harder, but as she looked at the phone in her hand, felt the weight of the contract and the promise it represented, Janae knew which path she was going to take. She just hoped she wouldn't regret it. Janae signed the contract at 11 p.m. that night, sitting at her tiny kitchen table while Amara slept in the next room. She photographed every page, sent copies to a legal aid lawyer, Mrs. Chen recommended, and then texted Minho a simple message. "I'm in. When do I start?" His response came 30 seconds later. "Monday, 9 a.m. Bring Amara. We'll enroll her in school together." That was 3 days away. 3 days that Minho apparently spent dismantling every obstacle in Janae's path. On Saturday morning, a moving company arrived at her apartment with instructions to pack and transport her belongings to a new address. A 2-bedroom apartment in a luxury building 3 blocks from Min Tower. The lease was already signed, the deposit paid, utilities activated. "I didn't agree to this," Janae said when she called Minho, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "You agreed to a housing allowance. I'm ensuring you have appropriate housing." His tone was matter-of-fact. "The building has 24-hour security, underground parking, and a children's play area. Amara will be safe there. You can't just move me without asking." "I can, and I did. The movers will handle everything. You just need to supervise." A pause. "Unless you'd prefer to stay in an apartment building with broken locks and no elevator?" Janae closed her eyes. He was right. Damn him. Her current building was a disaster, but the lack of control, the way he was simply arranging her life. "Next time," she said firmly. "You ask first." Noted. She could hear the smile in his voice. "I'll send a car for you Monday morning, 8:30. On Sunday, a woman named G1 appeared at Janae's new apartment with racks of clothing. "Mr. Kang sent me," she explained in lightly accented English. "You need professional wardrobe for office work. I take measurements, you choose styles, everything tailored to fit perfect. This really isn't necessary. Mr. Kang says you argue." Ji-won's smile was knowing. "He says ignore arguing, just make you beautiful. You already beautiful, so job is easy." Despite herself, Janae laughed. She spent 2 hours trying on clothes, elegant pantsuits, silk blouses, tailored dresses. Everything was high quality but understated, professional without being stuffy. Ji-won had an eye for what worked with Janae's complexion and body type, and by the end, Janae had a wardrobe that made her feel powerful. "Mr. Kang has good taste," Ji-won said as she packed up the selected items. "He notice you long time before you notice him." "What do you mean?" Ji-won's expression turned carefully neutral. "Nothing. I talk too much. Clothes will be delivered tomorrow morning, already altered." She paused at the door. "You good for him, I think. He needs someone who argue back." After she left, Janae stood in her new apartment, spacious, clean, safe, and tried to process everything that had happened in 72 hours. She'd gone from facing eviction to living in luxury. From working 3 jobs to having one that paid more than all 3 combined. From struggling alone to having someone who seemed determined to take care of her. It was overwhelming and terrifying and wonderful all at once. "Mama?" Amara appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Is this really our new home?" "Yes, baby. And I really get to go to the school with the science lab?" "You really do." Amara launched herself at Janae, wrapping small arms around her waist. "This is the best thing ever. Can I pick which room is mine?" Watching her daughter race through the apartment with pure joy, Janae felt something tight in her chest finally loosen. Whatever happened next, whatever complications came from working for Kang Minho, it was worth it for this moment. For giving her daughter a childhood that didn't involve fear and hunger and constant uncertainty. For that, she'd walk into any danger. Monday morning arrived with autumn sunshine and crisp air. The car Minho sent was a sleek black sedan with a driver who introduced himself as Tae-sung and spoke to Amara in gentle tones that immediately won her over. "Mr. Kang says you like stars," Tae-sung said as they drove through Manhattan traffic. "My daughter also likes stars. She wants to be astrophysicist." Amara's eyes went wide. "Really? How old is she?" 16. "She studies very hard at Science Academy." He glanced at Janae in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Kang arranged her scholarship there. He does this for many families." The information surprised Janae. It didn't fit the image of a ruthless crime boss. But then again, nothing about Kang Minho fit simple categories. They arrived at Min Tower at exactly 8:55 a.m. Tae-sung escorted them to the private elevator, which opened directly into the penthouse level Janae remembered from her night meeting with Minho. But now, in daylight, it was transformed. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with natural light. She could see people working in adjacent offices, hear the quiet hum of activity, and there, standing by those massive windows with his back to them, was Minho. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made for his body, which it probably had, and his hair was styled with casual perfection. When he turned at the sound of the elevator, Janae's breath caught. In the darkness of 3 a.m., in the intimate shadows of evening, Minho had been intimidating and attractive. But here, in his domain, radiating power and absolute control, he was devastating. His eyes found hers immediately, something warm flickering in their dark depths before his gaze dropped to Amara. The child stood slightly behind Janae, one hand gripping her mother's skirt, staring at Minho with wide-eyed curiosity rather than fear. "You must be Amara," Minho said, and his voice was different, gentler. He crouched down to bring himself closer to her eye level, a gesture Janae hadn't expected from a man who commanded fear. "Your mother has told me about you." "She told me about you too," Amara said with 7-year-old bluntness. "She says you're her new boss and you're helping us." "That's right. Are you rich?" "Amara." Janae's face heated with embarrassment. But Minho smiled that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. "It's okay. Yes, I'm rich. Does that bother you?" Amara considered this seriously. "No. Mama says money doesn't make people good or bad. Actions do. So I'm waiting to see what your actions are." Something flashed across Minho's expression. Surprise, respect, perhaps a touch of pain. "That's very wise," he said quietly. "Your mother is right, and I hope my actions will prove I'm worthy of your trust." He stood, offering his hand. "Would you like to see your new school? It's very close. We could walk there together." Amara looked at Janae for permission. When Janae nodded, the girl placed her small hand in Minho's large one without hesitation. Watching them together, this dangerous man and her innocent daughter Janae felt something shift in her chest. Minho held Amara's hand with careful gentleness, as if she were made of glass. And when he looked down at her, his expression was soft in a way Janae had never seen. "The school has a planetarium," he told Amara as they headed toward the elevator. "And next month, they're taking a field trip to the Hayden Planetarium. Would you like that?" "Yes!" Amara bounced with excitement. Can we see Saturn? Saturn is my favorite because of the rings. I'll make sure you get to see Saturn. They walked through Manhattan's morning rush, Minho setting a pace that accommodated Amara's shorter legs. People moved out of their way, some with recognition, others with instinctive wariness at the power Minho radiated. But he seemed oblivious to it all. His attention focused on the chattering 7-year-old beside him. Do you have kids? Amara asked suddenly. Minho's step faltered almost imperceptibly. No, I don't. Why not? Amara, Janae interjected. That's personal. It's all right. Minho glanced at Janae over Amara's head, something vulnerable in his expression. I never found the right person to have children with. My work is complicated. It wouldn't be fair to bring a child into my world. Mama's work is complicated too, Amara said matter-of-factly. She works really hard, but she still takes care of me. Maybe you just haven't met the right kid yet. The simple statement made Minho stop walking entirely. He looked down at Amara with an expression Janae couldn't quite read. Wonder, longing, and something almost like pain. Maybe I haven't, he said softly. The school was everything Janae had dreamed of for her daughter. Modern facilities, small class sizes, teachers who spoke about education with genuine passion. The science lab made Amara gasp with delight. We can really use all of this, she asked the principal, a warm woman named Dr. Martinez. Of course, that's what it's here for. Dr. Martinez smiled at Minho. Mr. Kang is one of our most generous benefactors. We're honored to have Amara joining us. The enrollment process took less than an hour. Uniform measurements, supply lists, schedule planning all handled with smooth efficiency. By 11 a.m., Amara was officially enrolled and excited to start the next day. Can I really start tomorrow? She asked Janae, practically vibrating with anticipation. You really can, baby. This is the best day ever. Amara threw her arms around Janae, then surprised everyone by doing the same to Minho. Thank you, Mr. Kang. Minho froze for a split second before his arms came up to carefully return the hug. Over Amara's head, his eyes met Janae's, and the raw emotion in them made her breath catch. This powerful, a dangerous man looked absolutely undone by a child's gratitude. Settling in, after dropping Amara with Mrs. Chen, who'd agreed to continue watching her for a few more days while Janae got settled, Minho brought Janae back to Min Tower for her first real day of work. Your office is here, he said, opening a door adjacent to his own. Janae stopped in the doorway, stunned. The space was beautiful, smaller than Minho's, but still spacious, with a view of the city, modern furniture, and a desk that probably cost more than her old car. But what caught her attention was the bookshelf along one wall, already filled with volumes. She moved closer, scanning the titles. Classic literature, modern fiction, poetry, books on education and child development. You said you had a scholarship to Columbia, Minho said from behind her. English literature, wasn't it? I thought you might appreciate having books nearby. Janae turned to face him, emotions swirling. You remembered that? I remember everything you tell me. He moved to her desk, pulling out the chair. Your job, at least initially, will be managing my legitimate business operations, correspondence, scheduling, liaison work with various companies. You'll have access to most of my files, attend meetings, represent me when necessary. What about the other business? The illegal parts? Those you won't touch, ever. If someone tries to involve you in those operations, you tell me immediately. His expression hardened. You're off limits for that world. Non-negotiable. Won't that cause problems? Your people might resent special treatment. My people will do what I tell them. Minho's voice carried absolute authority. And I'm telling them you're under my direct protection. No one questions that. No one tests it. Or they answer to me. The possessiveness in his tone sent an involuntary shiver through her. Now, he continued, his tone shifting back to business. Let's discuss your schedule. You'll work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. If I need you outside those hours, I'll ask first and compensate accordingly. You get weekends off unless there's an emergency. That's reasonable. I told you I'm not a monster. The corner of his mouth lifted. Well, not to people who work for me, honestly. Over the next several hours, Minho walked Janae through her responsibilities. She'd be managing his calendar, which was a complex web of business meetings, charitable foundation work, and mysterious appointments marked only with initials. These? She pointed to a cluster of entries marked JK. Don't worry about those. They're personal. And these? She indicated appointments marked family. Something shuddered in Minho's expression. Conference calls with my mother in Seoul. She's traditional. Doesn't approve of many of my business decisions. The way he said it suggested layers of complexity Janae didn't yet understand. Does she know about me? Not yet. Minho's dark eyes met hers. But she will soon. She takes interest in everyone who works closely with me. The implication made Janae nervous. Will that be a problem? My mother's opinion matters to me, but my decisions are my own. He closed the calendar application. Don't worry about her yet. Focus on getting comfortable with the work. At 1 p.m., Minho insisted they break for lunch. He led her to a private dining room Janae hadn't known existed, a space clearly designed for intimate business meetings, with a table that could seat 8 but was currently set for 2. I don't usually eat with my employees, Minho said as they sat down. But you're not really just an employee, are you? What am I then? He was quiet for a moment, considering. Someone I'm invested in, someone whose success matters to me personally, not just professionally. A woman appeared with food traditional Korean dishes that made Janae's mouth water. Bibimbap, bulgogi, kimchi, banchan side dishes she didn't recognize. I didn't know what you liked, Minho said, watching her reaction, so I ordered variety. If you don't like Korean food, are you kidding? This looks amazing. Janae picked up her chopsticks, then hesitated. Though I should warn you, my chopstick skills are questionable at best. To her surprise, Minho smiled. May I? At her nod, he moved his chair closer and adjusted her grip on the chopsticks, his hands warm and steady over hers. Like this. Hold the bottom one still, move the top one like a lever. He guided her through the motion, patient and gentle. There, try it. Janae managed to pick up a piece of bulgogi, triumphant when it made it to her mouth without dropping. I did it. You did. Minho's voice was warm, pleased. He was still sitting close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle, cedar and citrus. Thank you for teaching me, she said softly. Thank you for being willing to learn. His eyes held hers. Not everyone is comfortable with cultural differences. My father used to say that culture is what makes life rich. He traveled a lot for work when I was little, always brought back stories and foods and words from different places. Janae smiled at the memory. He said the world would be boring if everyone was the same. Your father sounds like he was a wise man. He was. I wish Amara could have known him. The familiar ache of loss pressed against her ribs. He died when I was 15. Heart attack, sudden. Minho's hand covered hers on the table, warm and grounding. I lost my father 5 years ago. Also sudden. Also heart-related, though in his case it was a bullet, not biology. Janae's eyes widened. Someone killed him? Rival family. They wanted to start a war, take our territory. His expression hardened. They failed. I made sure they failed. The violence implicit in those words should have frightened her. Instead, she found herself squeezing his hand. I'm sorry you lost him that way. I'm sorry you lost yours at all. Minho's thumb brushed across her knuckles. But I think he'd be proud of the woman you became. Of the mother you are to Amara. The compliment, delivered with such sincerity, made Janae's throat tight. They finished lunch in comfortable silence, but the awareness between them had shifted. Every accidental touch of hands reaching for the same dish, every moment their eyes met across the table, sent electricity sparking through the air. Janae was playing with fire, and she knew it. But for the first time in years, she felt warm. The first threat. Janae's first week passed in a blur of learning and adjustment. She threw herself into her work with characteristic intensity, mastering Minho's systems, building relationships with his business contacts, proving herself competent and trustworthy. Amara flourished at her new school, coming home every day with stories about science experiments and new friends. Mrs. Chen still watched her in the afternoons, but now in their spacious new apartment instead of a cramped walk-up. Everything was perfect, which should have been Janae's first warning. The call came on Friday evening. Janae was just leaving the office, heading to pick up Amara, when her phone rang, the new phone Minho had given her. She didn't recognize the number. Hello? Janae Williams? A man's voice, smooth and cold. Who is this? Someone who's been watching you. You've done well for yourself. New job, new apartment, fancy school for your daughter, all courtesy of Kang Minho. A pause. Must be nice, spreading your legs for a gangster. Janae's blood turned to ice. Who the hell? I'm just calling to give you some advice, sweetheart. Whatever Kang's paying you, it's not worth what's coming. His enemies are circling. And when they strike, anyone close to him becomes collateral damage. The voice dropped lower. Pretty little girl like Amara. It would be such a shame if something happened to her. The line went dead. Janae stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might be sick. Someone had threatened her daughter, mentioned her by name, knew where they lived, where Amara went to school. Her hands shook as she pulled up Minho's number. He answered immediately. Janae? What's wrong? Someone just called me, threatened Amara. Said, her voice broke. Said they've been watching us, that your enemies would target her. Where are you? Minho's voice had gone deadly calm. Still at the office. I was just leaving. Stay there. Don't move. I'm coming to you. A pause. Where's Amara? Still at Mrs. Chen's. I was about to. I'm sending Tae-sung to get her. He'll bring her to the office. You stay exactly where you are. Do you understand? Yes. Janae. His voice softened fractionally. You're safe. Amara is safe. I promise you. He hung up. Janae sank into the nearest chair, her whole body trembling. This was the reality of Minho's world. This was the danger he'd warned her about. And it had found her daughter. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the private elevator opened and Minho emerged, moving toward her with swift purpose. Behind him came 2 other men, security, she realized. Armed and alert. Tell me everything, Minho said, crouching in front of her chair. Exactly what was said. Janae repeated the conversation word for word, watching Minho's expression grow progressively darker. The phone number? He asked. She showed him. He pulled out his own phone, took a photo of the screen, and sent it somewhere. Blocked number, probably burner phone, but we'll trace it anyway. He looked up at his security. Activate full protection protocol. Janae and Amara get round-the-clock coverage. No one gets within 50 feet without clearance. Yes, sir. Minho's attention returned to Janae. I need you to think carefully. Have you noticed anyone following you? Anyone watching your apartment? Anything that felt off this week? Janae forced herself to focus past the fear. There was. Maybe. A car parked across from our building the last few nights. Dark blue sedan. I noticed because it was always in the same spot, but I thought I was being paranoid. You weren't being paranoid. Minho's jaw clenched. You were being watched, and my security should have caught it. That's on me. This isn't your fault. It absolutely is. He stood abruptly, pacing to the windows. I brought you into my world, made you visible to my enemies. I should have anticipated this, should have had better protection in place from day one. You can't control everything, Minho. He turned back to her, and the fury in his eyes was breathtaking. When it comes to you and Amara, I can damn well try. The possessiveness in his voice, the absolute conviction, sent warmth flooding through her despite the fear. What do we do now? She asked quietly. Now we make it very clear that you're under my protection, that anyone who touches you or Amara answers to me personally. His expression was cold and calculating. And I make an example of whoever made that phone call. Minho. They threatened your child, Janae, your 7-year-old daughter. There are rules even in my world, and that crossed every single one of them. He moved back to her, his voice gentling slightly. Trust me to handle this. Please. Before Janae could respond, the elevator opened again. Tae-sung emerged with Amara, who immediately ran to her mother. Mama, Tae-sung said, we're having a sleepover at Mr. Kang's house tonight. Is that true? Janae looked at Minho over her daughter's head, questioning. The penthouse has a secure floor, he explained. Multiple bedrooms, full security system, armed guards. You'll both stay there until I've neutralized this threat. We can't just move into your home. You can, and you will. No room for argument in his tone. This is non-negotiable, Janae. Your safety and Amara's come first. Everything else is secondary. Amara was looking between them with wide eyes. Are we in danger? No, baby, Janae said immediately, pulling her daughter close. Mr. Kang just wants to make extra sure we're safe, like a precaution. Like how we have fire drills at school even though there's no fire? Exactly like that. Amara seemed to accept this logic. She turned to Minho with her characteristic directness. Do you have video games at your house? Despite the tension, despite the fear and anger radiating from him, Minho smiled at Amara. I don't. But I can get some. What do you like to play? Anything with space, or puzzles, or do you have books? I have a library. Would you like to see it? As Minho led Amara toward the elevator, talking to her in that gentle voice he seemed to reserve only for the child, Janae felt her heart twist. This was dangerous territory. Not just physically, though, that was terrifying enough, but emotionally. She was falling for him. For his strength, his protectiveness, the way he treated her daughter like she was precious. For the contradiction of a man who could promise violence in one breath and quote poetry in the next. And judging by the way Minho looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention, he was falling too. But falling in his world meant landing in danger. And now that danger had found them. The penthouse. Minho's penthouse was even more impressive than his office. The entire top 2 floors of Min Tower, connected by a floating staircase, with views that stretched across Manhattan in every direction. But what struck Janae most was how it felt like a home rather than a showpiece. Yes, there was expensive art and designer furniture, but there were also lived-in touches, books scattered on tables, a well-used espresso machine in the kitchen, photographs of what she assumed were family members. Guest rooms are on the 2nd floor, Minho explained, leading them up the staircase. You and Amara can each have your own, or share if she prefers. Whatever makes you comfortable. I want my own room, Amara announced. Like a grown-up, then you shall have one. Minho opened a door to reveal a spacious bedroom decorated in soft blues and creams. This one has an ensuite bathroom, and he crossed to another door, opening it to reveal shelves full of books, direct access to the library. Amara's gasp of delight made both adults smile. Is this really for me? It is tonight, Minho confirmed. And for as long as you're staying here? While Amara immediately began exploring her temporary room, Minho led Janae to the adjacent bedroom, even larger, with a king-size bed and sitting area. You'll be comfortable here, he said. If you need anything. Why are you doing this? Janae interrupted. I mean, really. You could just increase security at our apartment. Why bring us here, into your personal space? Minho was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching hers. Because here I know you're safe. Here, I can guarantee no one gets to you without going through me first. He moved closer, his voice dropping. Because the thought of you or Amara in danger makes me want to burn the world down, and having you close is the only thing that calms that instinct. Minho. I know this is fast. I know it's probably insane. We've known each other less than 2 weeks. His hand came up to cup her face with devastating gentleness. But you've become important to me, Janae. Both of you. And I protect what's important to me with everything I have. Janae's breath caught. I'm not your responsibility. No. You're my choice. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. There's a difference. The moment stretched between them, electric and charged. Minho was so close, she could feel the heat radiating from his body, see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, count the individual lashes framing them. Mr. Kang? Amara's voice broke the spell. Can you show me the library now? Minho stepped back smoothly, his expression shifting from intense to gentle. Of course. Let's see what books we can find about space. As Janae watched him walk away with her daughter, she pressed a hand to her racing heart. She was in so much trouble. The evening settled into unexpected domesticity. Minho ordered dinner from a Korean restaurant, more dishes than 3 people could possibly eat, spread across his massive dining table. I wasn't sure what Amara would like, he explained, helping the girl into a chair. So I ordered everything. Amara's eyes were huge. We get to try all of this? As much as you want. And whatever you don't like, that's okay too. Watching Minho patiently teach Amara how to use chopsticks, explaining each dish with genuine enthusiasm, Janae felt something warm and dangerous bloom in her chest. This wasn't just attraction anymore. This was something deeper, more terrifying. Mama, try this. Amara held out a piece of japchae with her chopsticks. Mr. Kang says it's noodles with vegetables. It's delicious, isn't it? Janae took the offered bite, meeting Minho's eyes across the table. He was watching them both with an expression she couldn't quite read. Soft, almost longing. After dinner, while Amara was brushing her teeth, Janae found Minho standing at the windows overlooking the city. Thank you, she said quietly. For dinner, for making her feel safe, for all of it. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. You're going above and beyond what any employer would. I'm not your employer right now, Janae. He turned to face her. Right now, I'm a man trying to protect a woman and child who've become precious to me. That's not business. That's personal. How personal? The question hung between them. Minho closed the distance slowly, giving her time to step back. She didn't. So personal that I can't sleep because I'm thinking about you. So personal that seeing you smile makes my chest tight. So personal that the thought of anyone hurting you makes me capable of violence that would horrify you. His hand came up to trace her jawline. Is that honest enough? Minho. Her voice was barely a whisper. I know I shouldn't feel this way. You work for me. You're vulnerable. You have a daughter to protect. I should keep my distance, maintain professional boundaries. His forehead rested against hers. But I can't seem to do it. Every rule I've ever had about keeping people at arm's length, you've shattered just by existing. Janae's hands came up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palms. I feel it too, she admitted. This pull between us, it terrifies me. Because I'm dangerous? Because I want to trust you. Want to believe you'll keep us safe. Want to... She swallowed hard. Want to let myself fall, even though I know it's reckless. Then fall. His arms wrapped around her waist. I'll catch you. I swear to God, Janae, I'll catch you. The promise in his voice undid her. She tilted her face up at the same moment he lowered his, and their lips met in a kiss that was soft and desperate and inevitable all at once. Minho kissed her like she was precious, like she was something he'd been searching for without knowing it. His hands cradled her face with infinite gentleness even as the kiss deepened, intensified, consumed them both. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Janae's world had fundamentally shifted. We shouldn't, she whispered even as her hands fisted in his shirt, holding him close. Probably not. His lips brushed her temple. Tell me to stop. Tell me this is a mistake. I can't. Good. Because I don't think I could let you go even if you asked. Mama? They sprang apart like guilty teenagers as Amara appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Baby, what's wrong? Janae crossed to her daughter immediately. Can't sleep. New room is weird. Amara looked between them with surprising perceptiveness for a 7-year-old. Were you and Mr. Kang fighting? No, sweetheart, Minho answered before Janae could. Your mother and I were just talking. Oh, okay. Amara yawned. Can you tell me a bedtime story? Mama usually does, but she looks tired. Minho glanced at Janae, who nodded permission. I would be honored, he said solemnly. What kind of stories do you like? Space stories, with astronauts and aliens and black holes. I think I can manage that. Come on. Janae watched from the doorway as Minho tucked Amara into the enormous bed, sitting beside her and beginning an elaborate tale about an astronaut who discovered a friendly alien civilization. His voice was soft and soothing, and he clearly had no experience with bedtime stories, but he made up for it with genuine effort. Amara hung on every word, her eyes growing heavier with each minute. And so, Minho concluded, the astronaut returned home knowing that the universe was bigger and more wonderful than she'd ever imagined. The end. That was a good story, Amara mumbled sleepily. Will you tell me another one tomorrow? If you'd like. I would. She grabbed his hand suddenly. Mr. Kang, are you going to keep Mama safe? Minho's expression went very serious. Yes, I promise you, Amara. I'll keep both of you safe, no matter what. Good. Because she needs someone to take care of her too. She always takes care of everyone else but forgets about herself. Out of the mouths of babes, Janae thought, her throat tight. I'll remember that, Minho said softly. Thank you for trusting me. Amara was asleep within minutes. Minho stood carefully, tucking the blankets around her before following Janae out of the room. In the hallway, with the door closed behind them, Janae let out a shaky breath. You're good with her. She's easy to be good with. She's remarkable, Janae. Brilliant and kind and so perceptive it's almost frightening. She gets that from her father. The brilliance. Janae's smile was sad. Marcus was getting his PhD in physics when he died. Car accident, 3 weeks before Amara was born. He never got to meet her. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. But sometimes I see him in her the way she looks at the world with wonder, the questions she asks. It's like having a piece of him still here. Minho was quiet for a moment. She's lucky to have you. Both of you, you and Marcus, gave her something precious. Intelligence, and love, and strength. And you're giving her safety. Opportunity. Things I couldn't provide on my own. We're giving her those things, together. His hand found hers in the darkness. If you'll let me keep being part of her life. Part of both your lives. Janae knew she should be cautious. Should think about the complications and dangers. Should protect her heart and her daughter from potential hurt. Instead, she squeezed his hand and said, I think I'd like that. The attack. They fell asleep in separate rooms, Minho insisting on propriety with Amara in the house, but Janae woke at 2 a.m. to sounds of shouting. Korean voices, urgent and sharp. She bolted out of bed, immediately checking Amara's room. Her daughter was still asleep, undisturbed by the commotion. Janae followed the voices to find Minho in his office, surrounded by 3 men in dark suits, all of them armed. The security monitors on his wall showed multiple feeds, and Janae's blood ran cold when she recognized her apartment building on one screen. "What's happening?" she asked from the doorway. All 4 men turned. Minho's expression was thunderous. "Someone just tried to break into your apartment," he said flatly. "They were stopped by my security team, but not before leaving. This." He held up his phone, showing her a photograph. Her apartment door, spray-painted in red. Kang's whore dies next. Janae's knees went weak. Minho was beside her in an instant, his arm around her waist, supporting her weight. "Sit down," he ordered gently, guiding her to a chair. To his men, "Continue surveillance. I want everyone who came within a block of that building identified, and find out who's orchestrating this before I lose my patience." The men left immediately. "I'm sorry," Minho said, kneeling in front of Janae's chair. "I should have seen this coming. Should have prepared better. Who's doing this?" "I have suspicions. There's a rival organization that's been trying to expand into my territory. This fits their pattern: target someone close to me. Try to create vulnerability." His jaw clenched. "But threatening you, coming to your home, calling you." He couldn't finish the sentence, fury choking his words. "What happens now? Now I send a message of my own." Minho's expression was cold and deadly. "They think you're a weakness they can exploit. I'm going to show them exactly how wrong they are." "Minho, I don't want you starting a war over me. This isn't about starting a war. This is about ending one before it truly begins." He took her hands. "Trust me, Janae. Please, I know what I'm doing." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him it wasn't worth the risk, the violence, the potential cost. But looking into his eyes, seeing the absolute determination, the protective fury, the certainty that he would move heaven and earth to keep her and Amara safe, she found herself nodding. "Okay, I trust you." The relief in his expression was palpable. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "They won't touch you," he murmured against her hair. "I swear on everything I am, they won't get near you or Amara." Janae held on to him, breathing in his scent, feeling the solid strength of him. "Don't do anything that gets you killed," she whispered. "Amara needs you. I need you." His arms tightened. "Then I'll make sure I come back. Always." The next morning, Janae woke to find Minho already gone. A note on the kitchen counter, written in surprisingly elegant handwriting. "Had to handle business. Taesung will take Amara to school. Stay in the penthouse. I'll explain everything when I return. M." Janae crumpled the note, anxiety twisting in her gut. She knew what handling business meant in Minho's world, and the thought of him out there, confronting whoever had threatened them, made her stomach churn. But Amara needed normalcy. So Janae forced herself to smile, to make breakfast, to help her daughter get ready for school as if everything was fine. "Where's Mr. Kang?" Amara asked as Taesung arrived to collect her. "Working, baby. He'll see you later." Amara accepted this with a child's easy flexibility, chattering to Taesung about yesterday's science lesson as they headed to the elevator. Alone in the massive penthouse, Janae felt the walls closing in. She tried to work. Minho had given her remote access to his systems but couldn't concentrate. Every sound made her jump. Every minute that passed without word from him ratcheted her anxiety higher. At noon, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check the news. Channel 7. Janae's hands shook as she turned on the television, flipping to the local news station. The headline made her blood freeze. "Rival gang leader found dead in Queens. Police suspect organized crime involvement." The reporter stood outside a warehouse, crime scene tape fluttering behind her. "Discovered this morning by workers arriving for their shift. Police have identified the victim as David Park, alleged leader of the Red Dragon Syndicate. Sources say Park had been involved in an ongoing territorial dispute with other criminal organizations. No arrests have been made, but police are investigating." Janae muted the television, her heart pounding. David Park. The man who'd threatened her, who'd sent people to vandalize her apartment, who'd called her those vile names. Dead. And she knew exactly who was responsible. The penthouse elevator chimed. Janae spun around to find Minho emerging, still wearing the same black suit from this morning, but there was something different about him now, a coldness in his eyes, a set to his jaw that spoke of violence recently committed. "You killed him," Janae said. "Not a question." "Yes." No hesitation, no attempt to deny it. "Did you?" She stopped, not sure she wanted to know the details. It was quick. Cleaner than he deserved after what he threatened to do to you. Minho moved toward her slowly, watching her reaction. I told you I would handle it. This is me handling it. Janae should have been horrified, should have been repulsed by the casual admission of murder. Instead, all she felt was a complicated tangle of relief, gratitude, and fear for what this man was becoming to her. Will there be consequences? She asked. Police? Other gangs? Park's organization is already fractured. Without him, they'll collapse or be absorbed by others. As for the police, Minho's smile was cold. They'll investigate, find nothing useful, and eventually close the case. That's how this works. And his family, his people, understood the message. Touch what's mine, and there are consequences. Final consequences. He reached her, his hand coming up to cup her face. I know this disturbs you. I know you wish I'd handled it differently. But in my world, Janae, mercy is seen as weakness, and I can't afford weakness where you're concerned. I don't know how to feel about this, Janae admitted. Part of me is grateful. He threatened Amara. He called me. She couldn't repeat the words. He deserved punishment, but death. He would have killed you, or had you killed. And he would have made Amara watch first, to hurt me through you. Minho's voice was flat, certain. I saw the plans on his phone, instructions to his men about when and how to take you. It wasn't theoretical, Janae. It was scheduled for tonight. The room tilted. Tonight? He was going to have you grabbed when you left work. Take you somewhere I couldn't easily find you. Use you as leverage to make me surrender territory. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. I couldn't let that happen. Wouldn't let that happen. So yes, I killed him. And I'd do it again without hesitation. Janae's breath came in short gasps. She'd been hours away from being kidnapped, from being torn away from Amara, used as a pawn in a game she barely understood. Thank you, she whispered. Minho's eyes widened slightly. For killing someone? For keeping me safe? For protecting Amara? For her voice broke. For caring enough to do what needed to be done, even though you knew I might hate you for it. I could never hate you for protecting us, she said firmly. I might not understand your world. I might not like the violence, but I'm not naive enough to think it could have been resolved with a conversation. Something in Minho's expression cracked. He pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You constantly surprise me, he murmured against her hair. I expected fear, disgust, maybe you packing your bags and running, but instead you're thanking me. I'm practical. Janae's arms wrapped around his waist. And I know the difference between violence for cruelty's sake and violence for protection. You're not a monster, Minho. You're just a man doing what he has to do to protect what matters. You matter, he said fiercely. God, Janae, you matter so much it terrifies me. She pulled back to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his dark eyes, the fear beneath the cold exterior he showed the world. I'm falling in love with you, she said. The admission felt dangerous and necessary all at once. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I can't help it. You've shown me more care in 2 weeks than most people show in a lifetime. You treat my daughter like she's precious. You've given us safety and stability and hope. How am I supposed to not fall in love with that? Minho's breath hitched. For a long moment he just stared at her, his expression cycling through shock, wonder, and something that looked almost like pain. I don't deserve your love, he finally said. I'm dangerous, Janae. My world is dangerous. And loving me puts a target on your back. The target was already there the moment I started working for you, the moment you decided I mattered. She cupped his face in her hands. At least this way, I get something beautiful alongside the danger. Beautiful, he echoed, as if the word was foreign. Yes, this, she gestured between them. What we're building. It's beautiful and terrifying and probably insane, but it's real. I feel it every time you look at me, every time you're gentle with Amara, every time you show me the man beneath the crime lord facade. Minho kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of everything he couldn't say. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. I love you, he said roughly. I've never said those words to anyone outside my family. But I love you, Janae. You and Amara both. You've given me something I thought I'd never have a reason to want more than just power and survival. Then take it, Janae urged. Take us. Build something with us. Not instead of your empire, but alongside it. You'd really stay? Even knowing what I am, what I've done? I'm already staying. The question is, Are you brave enough to let yourself be loved? The question hung between them, profound and challenging. Then Minho smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his face, and kissed her again. Integration. The weeks that followed established a new normal that was anything but normal. Janae continued working as Minho's executive assistant, learning the intricacies of his legitimate business empire, while carefully avoiding the shadow operations. She proved herself invaluable, organized, intelligent, and able to navigate complex negotiations with grace. But more than that, she and Amara had been absorbed into Minho's life in ways that surprised everyone, including him. Amara had taken to calling him Mr. M, with 7-year-old affection, and he'd responded by becoming actively involved in her life, attending school events, helping with homework, teaching her Korean phrases that made her giggle. "Saranghae," Amara said one evening at dinner, pronouncing the Korean carefully. "That means, I love you, right, Mr. M?" Minho's expression went soft. "Yes, very good pronunciation." "Saranghae, Mr. M," Amara said cheerfully. "And Saranghae, Mama, I love you too, baby," Janae responded, her heart full. When Minho's eyes met hers across the table, she saw the question there, the hope, the fear. Later, after Amara was asleep, Janae found him on the penthouse balcony, staring out at the city. "She loves you," Janae said, joining him at the railing. "She barely knows me. She knows enough, knows you're kind to her, that you make her mother smile, that you keep us safe. That's all a child needs to know to love someone." Minho was quiet for a long moment. "I never thought I'd have this. A family. People who loved me for something other than fear or obligation. Do you want it? Really want it?" Janae turned to face him. "Because Amara's getting attached. And if you're going to walk away eventually, better to do it now before she gets hurt." "Walk away?" Minho's laugh was incredulous. "Janae, I'm trying to figure out how to convince you to stay permanently. How to make this," he gestured between them, "official in every way that matters." "Official how?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Janae's breath caught. "I know it's fast," Minho said, opening the box to reveal a stunning ring, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds. "I know we've only known each other a few weeks, but in my world, when you find something worth keeping, you don't hesitate. You claim it before someone else does. Are you asking you to marry me?" "Yes." His dark eyes held hers. "I love you, Janae. I love Amara. I want to build a life with you both, protect you both, give you everything you deserve. I want to wake up with you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to watch Amara grow up and be there for every milestone. I want," his voice roughened, "I want to be yours, completely, if you'll have me." Janae's eyes filled with tears. "This is insane. I know. We barely know each other. I know. You're a crime boss, and I'm a single mother from the Bronx who cleans offices for a living. You were a single mother who cleaned offices. Now you're the woman I love, the woman I want to spend my life with." Minho took her hand. "None of the rest matters, Janae. The only question that matters is, do you love me enough to take this chance?" She looked at the ring, at the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, at the life he was offering. A life of luxury and danger, of protection and complications, of love that was fierce and absolute. "Yes," she heard herself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." The relief on Minho's face was almost painful to witness. He slid the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her into a kiss that was tender and claiming all at once. "You won't regret this," he promised against her lips. "I swear to you, I'll spend every day making sure you never regret choosing me." "I know you will." They stood on the balcony, holding each other as the city sparkled below, and Janae felt a peace she hadn't known in years. This was right. Against all logic, against all odds, this was exactly where she was meant to be. The mother. The call came 2 days after the engagement. Minho's expression went carefully blank when he saw the caller ID, and Janae knew immediately who it was. "Iyoma," he answered in Korean, moving toward his office for privacy. But Janae had been picking up Korean phrases, and she caught enough of the conversation to understand it wasn't going well. Raised voices, Minho's tone shifting from respectful to firm to almost pleading. When he emerged 30 minutes later, he looked exhausted. "My mother wants to meet you," he said flatly. "She's flying in from Seoul tomorrow." "That's good?" "It's complicated." Minho ran a hand through his hair. "She has very traditional views about who I should marry. Very specific ideas about appropriate partners for the head of the family. And I don't fit those ideas. You're not Korean. You're not from our world. You have a child from another relationship. He caught her hands. None of which matters to me but to her. It matters a lot, Janae finished. I understand. I won't let her talk me out of this, Minho said fiercely. Won't let her convince me you're not suitable. But I need you to understand she can make things very difficult if she chooses. She still has influence in the organization. Connections to the old guard who remember when my father ran things. Are you asking me to win her over? I'm asking you to be yourself. Because that's who I fell in love with. And if she can't see how remarkable you are, that's her failure, not yours. The meeting was arranged for Friday evening. Minho's mother, Han Soo-min, arrived at the penthouse with an entourage of two severe-looking women who were clearly staff. She was elegant and cold, dressed in a designer hanbok that probably cost more than Janae's car. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her posture radiating generations of breeding and refinement. And when her eyes landed on Janae, they went ice cold. So, she said, in accented but perfect English, you are the woman my son wishes to marry. Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to meet you. Is it? Soo-min's gaze raked over Janae, cataloging and dismissing in the same glance. Tell me, Miss Williams, what do you know of our family? Our traditions? Our responsibilities? Not as much as I should, Janae admitted. But I'm learning, and I respect Minho's heritage, even if I don't share it. Respect is not enough. My son is the head of one of the most powerful Korean organizations on the East Coast. His wife must be able to navigate that world with grace and understanding. She must be able to host important guests, speak the language, understand the culture. Soo-min's smile was cold. Can you do these things? Not yet, but I can learn. Can you? Soo-min turned to Minho, speaking rapid Korean that Janae couldn't follow. But she caught the tone. Disapproving, dismissive. Minho's response was firm, almost harsh. His mother's eyes narrowed. The argument continued for several minutes before Soo-min turned back to Janae. My son says you have a daughter. Where is she? In school. She'll be home. I wish to meet her. If Minho is to take on another man's child, I should know what kind of burden he's accepting. The word burden made Janae's blood boil. Amara is not a burden, she said quietly, but with steel underneath. She's a brilliant, kind, remarkable child. And Minho doesn't see her as something to be taken on, he sees her as a gift. You speak boldly for someone in your position. My position as the woman your son loves? Yes, I do. Janae met Soo-min's cold gaze without flinching. I understand I'm not what you wanted for Minho. I'm not Korean. I'm not from your world, and I come with complications. But I love your son. And more importantly, he loves me, loves Amara, and he's chosen us despite all the logical reasons not to. Love, Soo-min said the word like it was distasteful. Love is a luxury my son cannot afford. He needs a strategic partnership, not a romantic entanglement. With respect, ma'am, that's not your decision to make. It's Minho's. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Aoma, Minho interjected, his voice carrying warning. That's enough. Is it? You bring this woman into our family, expect me to accept her, and she speaks to me with such disrespect? She spoke to you with honesty, which is more than most people dare. Minho moved to stand beside Janae, his hand finding hers. I love her. I'm going to marry her. You can either accept that and be part of our lives, or you can return to Seoul. Your choice. Soo-min's eyes widened. Clearly, no one spoke to her this way, especially not her son. You would choose her over your family? She is my family now. Her and Amara both. Minho's voice was absolute. I will always respect you, Aoma. Always honor your position. But I won't let you dictate my personal life. Not in this. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, surprisingly, Soo-min's expression shifted. Not to warmth that would have been too much, but to something like grudging respect. You've changed, she said to Minho in Korean. Become stronger, more certain. Because of her, he replied in the same language. Soo-min studied Janae for a long moment, reassessing. I will stay for dinner, she finally said in English. And I will meet the child. Then I will decide if this match is acceptable. It wasn't approval, but it was a chance. Janae would take it. The dinner. Amara came home from school bursting with excitement about a science project, completely unaware of the tension waiting for her. Mama! Mr. M, guess what we're learning about? She stopped short when she saw Soo-min sitting in the living room. Oh, Hello. Amara, Janae said gently. This is Mr. M's mother, Mrs. Han. She's visiting from Korea. From Korea? Amara's eyes went wide. That's so cool. Do you live near Seoul? I read about Seoul in my geography book. It has over 10 million people. Soo-min blinked, clearly not expecting an enthusiastic geography lesson. Yes, I live in Seoul. What's it like? Is it true that the city never sleeps? Do you have a favorite place there? Amara bounced on her toes, her natural curiosity overwhelming any shyness. Soo-min seemed at a loss. Yes, the city is very vibrant. My favorite place is Bukshan Hanok village. Traditional houses, very beautiful. Can you show me pictures? I love seeing pictures of different places. Amara moved closer, utterly fearless. And can you teach me some Korean words? Mr. M has been teaching me, but I want to learn more. Watching this, Janae saw something shift in Soo-min's expression. The child's genuine interest, her brightness, seemed to penetrate the cold exterior. You're learning Korean? Soo-min asked. I can count to 10 and say please and thank you and I love you. Amara demonstrated proudly. Mr. M says, I have good pronunciation for a beginner. She does, Minho confirmed, his hand resting on Amara's shoulder. She's a quick learner. Dinner was less tense than Janae had feared. Amara, bless her, carried much of the conversation with her endless questions about Korea, Seoul, Korean food, traditional customs. Soo-min answered each question with increasing patience, and Janae could see her guard slowly lowering in the face of Amara's genuine enthusiasm. You are very curious, child, Soo-min finally said, something almost like fondness in her voice. Mama says curiosity is how we learn, and Mr. M says asking questions shows intelligence. Amara smiled brightly. So I ask lots of questions. Wise advice from both of them. Soo-min glanced at Janae, then at Minho. You are raising her well. Thank you, Janae said quietly. After dinner, while Amara was getting ready for bed, Soo-min requested a private word with Janae. They stood on the balcony, the city lights glittering below. My son loves you, Soo-min said without preamble. Truly loves you. I see it in how he looks at you, how he speaks about you. This is not infatuation. It is real. I love him too. I believe you do. Soo-min was quiet for a moment. When his father died, Minho became cold, hard, necessary for survival, but painful to watch. I thought I had lost the gentle boy he used to be. But with you, with that child, I see glimpses of him again. So perhaps you are good for him, even if you are not what I would have chosen. It was the closest thing to approval Janae was likely to get. I'll take care of him, she said. I'll honor his heritage, learn his culture, support his responsibilities. I promise you that. See that you do. Because if you hurt him, if you betray the trust he's placed in you, Soo-min's eyes went cold. I will ensure you regret it. Mother's prerogative. Despite the threat, Janae smiled. I would expect nothing less. Soo-min's lips twitched. Almost a smile. You have courage. Good. You will need it in this family. She turned to go back inside, then paused. The child, Amara, she is bright, precious. I understand now why my son has claimed her as his own. She's easy to love. Yes, she is. Soo-min's expression softened fractionally. Take care of her, both of you. That is all a grandmother can ask. Grandmother. The word hung in the air, heavy with acceptance and promise. Soo-min left the next morning, but not before giving Janae a traditional Korean dress and Amara a children's book about Korean folktales written in both Korean and English. So your education can begin properly, she told them both. It was a beginning, not perfect, but real, and Janae would take it. 6 months later. The wedding was small and private, just close family and Minho's inner circle. Janae wore a traditional hanbok for the Korean ceremony, then changed into a white dress for the Western portion. Amara was the flower girl, beaming with pride as she scattered petals down the aisle. When Minho slipped the ring onto Janae's finger beside the sapphire engagement ring she still wore, he whispered words in Korean that made her eyes fill with tears. Forever, she whispered back. Forever, he agreed. The reception was held in the penthouse, and Janae was surprised by how many people came to celebrate with them. Business associates who'd grown to respect her competence, staff members who'd seen how she treated them with dignity, even some of Soo-min's friends from Seoul, curious about the American woman who'd captured the heart of the formidable Kang Minho. You look happy, Mrs. Chen said, hugging Janae tightly. So different from the exhausted woman I used to watch struggle. He's good for you. We're good for each other, Janae corrected. Later, dancing with Minho while Amara slept peacefully in one of the guest rooms, Janae reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. She'd gone from crying in an office at 3 a.m. to dancing at her own wedding, from struggling to survive to thriving in ways she'd never imagined. From being alone to having a family, Minho, Amara, even Sumin in her complicated way. What are you thinking? Minho asked, his arms secure around her waist. That I'm glad I stayed late that night. Glad you found me crying. Glad you were arrogant enough to think you could fix my problems. Arrogant? His eyes sparkled with amusement. Extremely. You basically steamrolled my entire life. And you let me, which suggests you wanted to be steamrolled. Maybe I did. She rested her head on his shoulder. Maybe I was tired of being strong alone. Maybe I was ready to let someone share the weight. Then I'm honored you chose me. Always you, she promised. For all the complicated, dangerous, beautiful forevers to come. Minho held her closer, and Janae closed her eyes, listening to his heartbeat, feeling safe and loved and home. The journey that had started with tears at 3 a.m. had led here to vows and promises, and a future built on foundations of trust, respect, and a love that had bloomed in the most unlikely circumstances. And as the city sparkled beyond the windows, as music played and their family celebrated around them, Janae knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be, in the arms of a dangerous man who'd proven himself worthy of her trust, building a life with someone who saw her strength and matched it with his own, creating a family from hope and courage and love. It was more than she'd ever dared to dream. It was everything. The boardroom on the 45th floor of Min Tower held 12 of the most powerful people in Minho's organization. Men and women who controlled everything from legitimate real estate holdings to the shadow operations that still funded a significant portion of the empire. And at the head of the table, sitting beside Minho, was Janae. She'd come a long way from the janitor crying in an office at 3 a.m. Now she wore a tailored suit that cost more than she used to make in a month, her natural hair styled in elegant locks that fell past her shoulders. Diamond studs, a gift from Minho for their 6-month anniversary, glinted in her ears. But more than the external transformation, it was the confidence radiating from her that made people take notice. She'd earned her place at this table through competence, intelligence, and an ability to navigate the complex politics of Minho's world with surprising grace. The community center project is ahead of schedule, she was saying, pulling up financial projections on the screen behind her. We'll be able to open 3 months early, which means we can start the after-school programs before the fall semester. Community centers don't generate revenue, one of the older men, Park Jinho, said dismissively. Why are we wasting resources on charity? Because it's not charity, it's investment, Janae replied smoothly. The center will serve the neighborhood where we're developing our new residential complex. Good community relations means smoother permitting, less local resistance, and better long-term property values. Plus, it generates goodwill that protects our other operations. She'd learned to speak their language to frame humanitarian work in terms of strategy and profit margins. It wasn't dishonest. The benefits were real, but it made the old guard more willing to support her initiatives. Minho watched her with poorly concealed pride as she fielded questions and concerns. When the meeting finally adjourned, several of the attendees approached her directly with follow-up questions, rather than going through Minho. A year ago, they would have dismissed her entirely. Now they recognized her as a power in her own right. You were magnificent, Minho murmured when they were finally alone in his office. Jinho actually looked impressed, and he's never impressed by anyone. I've been studying. Janae kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. Your mother sent me more materials on negotiation tactics. Apparently I need to work on my subtle intimidation. Minho's laugh was genuine and warm. My mother sending you strategy guides. I never thought I'd see the day. She's warming up to me. Only took a year and approximately 50 phone calls where I asked for her advice on Korean customs. Strategic on your part. I learned from the best. Janae moved to the windows, looking out at the city. Speaking of strategy, I got a call from Columbia today. Minho's attention sharpened. About? They're offering me a spot in their continuing education program. I could finish my degree, part-time, while still working. She turned to face him. But it would mean less time here, busier schedules, juggling more responsibilities. Do you want to do it? I want to finish what I started. Want to prove to myself that I can. Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. Before things get even more complicated. Minho's eyes went wide. Janae, are you? 8 weeks. Her smile was radiant. I found out yesterday. Wanted to wait until after the board meeting to tell you. In 2 strides, Minho crossed the office and swept her into his arms, spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "We're having a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "A baby, Janae." "We are. Amara's going to be a big sister." She cupped his face in her hands. "Are you happy?" Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He set her down gently, his hand immediately going to her still flat stomach. Terrified, overwhelmed, ecstatic, but mostly just grateful. Grateful that you're mine, that we're building this family together. Even though it means I'll be even more of a target, that we're bringing another child into your dangerous world. Minho's expression grew serious. "I won't lie and say there's no risk, but look at everything we've built this year. The security systems, the legitimate businesses growing faster than the illegal ones, the alliances I've formed with other families. We're transitioning, Janae. Slowly, but steadily. By the time this baby is born, I want to be completely legitimate. That's a big goal. I have big motivation." His hand pressed gently against her stomach. "This child deserves to grow up without the shadow of my past hanging over them. Deserves better than I had. They'll have you as a father. That's already better than most." The vulnerability in Minho's eyes made her heart ache. Even after a year together, he still sometimes struggled to believe he deserved this happiness. "Come on," she said, taking his hand. "We need to pick up Amara from school. And you promised you'd help her with her science project tonight. The solar system model. I haven't forgotten." Minho grabbed his jacket, then paused. "Should we tell her about the baby? Let's wait until after the first trimester. I don't want to worry her if something goes wrong." "Nothing will go wrong." His voice carried absolute conviction. "I'll make sure of it." Family dynamics. Amara had flourished over the past year in ways that constantly amazed Janae. The shy, sometimes anxious child had bloomed into a confident 8-year-old who spoke basic Korean, excelled in her science classes, and had completely wrapped Minho around her little finger. Today was no exception. When they picked her up from school, she immediately launched into an excited explanation of her project. "And Mr. Chen said my hypothesis about gravitational pull was really sophisticated for my age. And he thinks I should enter the citywide science fair." Amara bounced in her seat. "Can I, Mr. M, please?" "Of course you can." Minho glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "We'll make sure you have everything you need for your presentation. Will you help me practice? You're really good at explaining things." "I would be honored." Watching them interact, Minho patient and encouraging, Amara trusting and affectionate, Janae felt her heart swell. This was her family, complicated and unconventional, but completely hers. At home, they'd moved out of the penthouse 6 months ago into a brownstone in Brooklyn that offered more space and an actual yard. Amara immediately commandeered the dining room table for her project. "Okay," she said seriously, spreading out her materials. "I need to make models of all 8 planets to scale, plus the sun. And I want to show how their orbits work." "That's ambitious," Minho observed. "You always say I should think big." "I do say that." He rolled up his sleeves. "All right, let's start with measurements." Janae left them to their project and headed to the kitchen, where Mrs. Chen was already preparing dinner. The older woman had insisted on continuing to help with Amara and had gradually become part of their extended family. "They're building the solar system," Janae said, pulling vegetables from the refrigerator. "Again?" Mrs. Chen smiled. "That man spoils that child." "He does. But she adores him for it." Janae began chopping vegetables for the salad. "Mrs. Chen, can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." "When you first met Minho, what did you think?" Mrs. Chen was quiet for a moment, considering. "I thought he was dangerous, too polished, too controlled. The kind of man who could hurt you without blinking." She glanced toward the dining room where Minho's patient voice could be heard explaining orbital mechanics. "But then I saw how he looked at you, and how he was with Amara, and I realized he was only dangerous to people who threatened what he loved. And now? Now I think he's the best thing that ever happened to you and that child. He gave you both safety, stability, love. Not many men would step up the way he has." Mrs. Chen touched Janae's hand. "You chose well, my dear, even if the choice was unconventional." From the dining room came Amara's delighted squeal. "Mr. M, you made Saturn's rings perfect." "We make a good team," Minho replied, and Janae could hear the smile in his voice. "The best team," Amara agreed. Mrs. Chen caught Janae's expression and laughed softly. "You're pregnant." Janae's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I've known you for 3 years, child. I see the glow, the way you're moving more carefully, the little smile you get when you think no one's watching. She hugged Janae warmly. Congratulations. Does Minho know? I told him today. And is he over the moon? Completely. Good. That child will be very loved. Mrs. Chen returned to her cooking. Have you thought about names? Not yet. It's still so early. Janae rested a hand on her stomach. But knowing Minho, he'll have a list of Korean names with detailed meanings and family significance. And you'll choose something that honors both cultures, just like you do with everything else. It was true. Over the past year, Janae had worked hard to integrate Korean traditions into their family life while maintaining her own heritage. They celebrated both Chuseok and Thanksgiving, Lunar New Year and Christmas. Amara was learning Korean and studying African American history with equal enthusiasm. It was a beautiful blend, messy and imperfect, but authentically theirs. The adoption. 2 weeks later, Minho brought up something he'd been thinking about for months. They were in bed. Janae curled against his side, his hand resting protectively on her stomach where their baby grew. I want to adopt Amara, he said quietly. Legally. Make her my daughter in every way. Janae's breath caught. Minho. I know her father's name is on the birth certificate. I'm not trying to replace him or erase that part of her history. But I've been her father in every way that matters for a year now. I love her like she's my own blood. And I want it to be official. Want her to have my name, my protection, all the legal rights that come with being my child. Tears pricked Janae's eyes. You really want this? More than almost anything. The only thing I want more is for this baby to be born healthy, and for you to be safe. He shifted to look at her directly. Amara is my daughter, Janae. She calls me Dad now when we're alone. She trusts me, depends on me. I want to make that bond legal and permanent. Dad? Janae hadn't known about this development. When did she start calling you that? About a month ago. We were reading before bed, and she just slipped. Asked if it was okay. I told her it was more than okay. His voice roughened with emotion. I told her I'd be honored to be her dad if she wanted me to be. Janae was fully crying now. Of course you can adopt her. Of course. She'll be thrilled. Will she? I don't want to pressure her. Minho, she loves you. She's been drawing pictures of our family where you're labeled Dad for months. I just thought she was afraid to say it out loud. Janae kissed him softly. You've given her everything a father should give a child. Love, stability, attention, support. Making it legal is just paperwork. Important paperwork. It means if anything happens to you, she stays with me. No questions, no custody battles with distant relatives. She's mine. The possessiveness in his tone made Janae smile. When do you want to tell her? Tomorrow? We could make it special. Take her somewhere she loves. Make it a celebration. The planetarium, Janae suggested. She's been begging to go back. Perfect. The next evening, after a day exploring the cosmos at the Hayden Planetarium, they took Amara to her favorite Korean restaurant. Over bibimbap and mandu, Minho cleared his throat. Amara, your mother and I want to talk to you about something important. Amara's eyes went wide with worry. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart, not at all. Janae took her daughter's hand. It's something good. Really good. Minho pulled out an envelope. I wanted to ask you something, and I want you to know you can say no if you want to. There's no pressure. Okay. I'd like to adopt you. Make you legally my daughter. It would mean your name would change to Kang Amara, and I would be your father on all official documents. He paused. But I want you to understand, I'm not trying to replace your birth father. He'll always be part of your history. I'm just asking if you'd let me be your dad going forward. Amara stared at him for a long moment, her young face serious as she processed this. Then she launched herself out of her chair and into Minho's arms, nearly knocking him over. Yes, 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 yes. She was crying and laughing at once. I want to be Kang Amara. I want you to be my dad forever. Minho held her tight, his own eyes suspiciously wet. Forever, sweetheart. I promise. Can I call you Dad all the time now? Not just at home? You can call me whatever makes you comfortable. Dad, Amara said firmly. I want to call you Dad. Over her daughter's head, Janae met Minho's eyes and saw her own happiness reflected there. Their family was becoming official in every way that mattered. And the best part? This was just the beginning. Full circle. Late one night, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion, Janae found herself wandering the halls of their brownstone. She ended up in Minho's study, a room that reminded her of that first office where everything had changed. Minho found her there, standing by the windows, looking out at Brooklyn's quieter skyline. Can't sleep? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Too much on my mind. Good things, mostly, but still. She leaned back against him. I was just thinking about that night. When you found me crying in your office, the night that changed everything. Did you know then that this is where we'd end up? Minho was quiet for a moment. I knew you were different. Knew I wanted to help you, to know you. But did I know I'd fall in love with you? That you'd become the center of my entire world? That your daughter would become mine? He pressed a kiss to her temple. No, I didn't know it would be this profound. I was so scared that night, of losing everything, of failing Amara, of not being strong enough to survive. Janae turned in his arms. I never imagined I'd end up here. Married to you, pregnant with your child, watching you adopt my daughter, building an empire together. Do you regret it? The complications, the danger, the scrutiny? Not for a second. Her answer was immediate and certain. You gave me more than security and wealth, Minho. You gave me partnership, respect, a love I didn't know existed outside of fairy tales. And you gave Amara a father who treasures her. She's easy to treasure, just like her mother. They stood in comfortable silence, holding each other as the city slept around them. Minho? Janae said eventually. Thank you for walking into your office that night. Thank you for seeing me when I was trying to be invisible. Thank you for caring enough to help, and for loving me enough to stay. Thank you for letting me, he replied, for trusting me with your heart and your daughter, for building this life with me even when it was complicated and scary, for choosing me every day. Always you, Janae promised. For all our complicated, beautiful forevers. And as Minho kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise, Janae thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a janitor crying at 3 a.m. to a wife, mother, and partner in every sense of the word, from desperation to abundance, from loneliness to love. It hadn't been easy, it hadn't been simple, but it had been worth every moment. 6 months later, Janae sat in a hospital bed, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny baby wrapped in soft blankets. Minho sat beside her, one arm around her shoulders, the other hand gently touching their newborn son's perfect face. And on Janae's other side, Amara, now officially Kang Amara, gazed at her baby brother with wonder and delight. He's so small, she whispered. Can I hold him? Carefully, Janae said, helping her daughter position her arms correctly. Amara held her brother with intense concentration, her face glowing with pride. Hi, baby. I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything, about stars and planets and science. And Dad's going to teach you Korean and chess, and Mama's going to teach you to be kind and strong. You're going to have the best life ever. Minho's hand found Janae's, squeezing gently. They'd decided on a name that honored both their cultures. Daniel Hyunwoo Kang, Daniel for Janae's father, Hyunwoo for wisdom and protection in Korean. He's perfect, Sumin said from the doorway, having flown in the moment she heard labor had started. Absolutely perfect. May I? Amara carefully transferred the baby to her grandmother, and Janae watched as the formidable woman's face softened completely. Welcome to the family, little one, Sumin murmured in Korean. You are very loved, very blessed. Mrs. Chen arrived moments later with food, because of course she did. Soon the room was full of the people who mattered family by blood and by choice, all gathering to celebrate this new life. And as Janae looked around at her unconventional, complicated, beautiful family, she felt a peace so profound it brought tears to her eyes. She'd started this journey alone and afraid, crying in an office at 3 a.m. with nowhere to turn. Now she had everything. A partner who loved her fiercely, a daughter who was thriving, a new baby to nurture and protect, a family that had embraced her despite every reason not to. Minho caught her eye and smiled that rare, genuine smile that was reserved only for her and their children. I love you, he mouthed. I love you more, she mouthed back. It was their ongoing argument, one that would never be resolved, and Janae wouldn't have it any other way.